You're a real stupid piece of shit. But I know I'm a piece of shit. That at least makes me better than all the pieces of shit who don't know they're pieces of shit. Or is it worse?
We've all agreed as a society that confidence is the thing that you want more of. That the goal is to kill the doubt, silence the second guessing, and finally just know you're good. We treat insecurity like a glitch, something to fix or grow out of, or at least to get good at hiding, so that one day you can walk around feeling like you're finally enough. And because of that, nobody really stops to ask if the glitch is actually doing something important. If the doubt and the second guessing isn't a malfunction at all, because if it is, then the thing most of us have spent years trying to get rid of might be the one thing working in our favor. And that changes everything about what you're supposed to do with it. The first thing we have to get straight is what insecurity even is, because we talk about it like it's just a mood, this bad feeling that sits on you until it passes, and then you get past it, and that's it. But underneath that feeling, it's really more like an alarm. Your brain has this error detector built into it that fires off a little spike of electricity the instant you make a mistake or think about your own mistakes. And I mean the instant that you make it, faster than you can consciously notice that you got anything wrong, before the thought, oh no, oops, has even finished forming in your meat sack. Its whole job here is to raise a flag as soon as it notices a discrepancy between what you meant to do and what you actually did, and then shove that whole thing in your face. Something's off, go check it, wee woo wee woo. You know how Spider-Man feels danger coming a beat before he sees it? Kinda like that. You have the same thing, it's just pointed at your own slip-ups instead of incoming explosions, and it's louder for some people than others. The overthinkers, the people replaying a conversation in the shower 3 hours later. Now, your first instinct is that this is obviously a curse, and pushed far enough, it absolutely is. An alarm running that hot all the time or so frequently is one of the most reliable signs of an anxiety disorder. But when you follow people over time, that same oversized alarm, measured back when they were kids, also predicts better self-control years down the line. It is actually helpful. Sharper focus, the ability to catch your own mistakes before anyone else has to point them out. It's a protective system. The research describes the same exact brain response as a risk and as protection, because depending on what's steering it, that's genuinely what it is. So it's not a flaw all the time, and it's not a gift all the time. It's kind of what you would call a dial, a system that you're supposed to have in moderation depending on the situation. And insecure people are walking around with this dial turned all the way up to 11. The clearest way to see what that turned up alarm actually builds is to watch two people stare at the exact same thing, with only one of them able to see it.
You knew I was the Dragon Warrior. You always knew.
Tai Lung is the prodigy. He was told that his entire life, raised for it, promised the coveted title of Dragon Warrior and the right to inherit the Dragon Scroll since he was a cub. So by the time he's grown, there's no alarm left in him at all. No part of him wonders if he's wrong at any point, because about this, he never has been. He as self-assured as anyone could be. Then, once he finally gets his paws on the scroll and tears it open after a whole debacle, he sees that it's blank. Just a shiny gold surface with his own face staring back at him. He rages that there's nothing there. But the scroll isn't broken, we know, and he isn't being cheated of anything. He's actually looking right at the answer. He just can't take it in, because a man that sure of himself in the first place doesn't have an alarm going off anymore, nothing left to tell him that he might be missing something. So he misses everything. He doesn't actually get the point. Then there's Po, who never once believed that he belonged anywhere in that world. Crashed the Jade Palace ceremony by accident, spent the whole movie convinced that he was picked by Oogway as an accident. And yet, he was able to see what the scroll actually contained.
There is no secret ingredient. It's just you.
Feeling like a fraud, striving to be better, to find and work on his strengths, is the only reason Po could read it, because throughout the movie he was unsure. He felt like an imposter. And that actually turns out to be one of the most studied things in psychology. It's called imposter syndrome. You might be familiar. High-achieving people are often privately convinced that they've pulled off some elaborate con and are about to be found out, and everyone else will know that they were tricked. And the assumption for years was that it was just a confidence problem. Talented people failing to see their own worth, blinded to their own excellence. Until researchers started measuring what the feeling actually does, and it actually turns out to be doing real work. There's a studied strategy called defensive pessimism. where instead of psyching yourself up before something big, you do the exact opposite. You sit there and deliberately walk through every specific way it could go wrong. Then you plan around each one. It sounds kind of miserable, and yeah, it kind of is. But when researchers compared anxious people using that strategy against optimists who just expected things to go fine, the two groups actually performed about the same. One worrying, one expecting things to go perfect, and the worrying group, once turned into an actual checklist, closed the gap between them. And the part that proves the worry was the thing doing the heavy lifting was when they took those defensive pessimists and forced them to think positive instead, to just relax and picture it all going great. And then their performance dropped. The worry wasn't getting in the way of the performance, where they could have done better if they just stopped worrying. It actually was the basis of their performance. The best picture of that isn't a study, though. It's a scrawny Viking kid who struggles to lift a sword. Everyone in Hiccup's village fights dragons the same way: charge, swing, hope, and rely on their strength. Hiccup can't do that. He's too small and too weak, and he knows it. And that's exactly the reason he does the one thing nobody else thinks to. He watches, he analyzes, he thinks ahead. He sits with the dragon he's caught, scared out of his mind, and just studies it. What it eats, what spooks it, where it won't let him near. He fills a book with it. And all of that watching, all of that being too afraid to fight, turns up the one fact that 300 years of confident warriors actually missed. The dragons were never the enemy. The whole war was a misunderstanding, and the kid too unsure to swing in the first place is the one person to end it, because he was the one still looking, still trying to figure out what was wrong.
I wouldn't kill him because he looked as frightened as I was. I looked at him, and I saw myself.
He didn't see himself in the dragon because he was brave or anything. He saw a person in this creature because he was scared, and being scared made him look closer. And looking closer eventually turned him into the master dragon rider we came to know. And so, this insecurity, this hesitation, changes how you are with other people. People who feel the most like frauds can, more often than not, come across as better with others, warmer, more tuned in, easier to be around, because they're trying harder. There was a study where the trainee doctors who felt the most like imposters actually got rated higher by their own patients, because feeling unsure of yourself shoves your attention outward onto the person right in front of you, instead of leaving it stuck on yourself. It makes you, it forces you to try, to actually analyze. The confident one never has to do any of that. He already knows he's great, so he can afford to stop looking and just do what he does best, right? Which is the whole thing all over again. The doubt is what keeps you looking. Certainty and blind confidence, the second that really sets in, stops you from doing any further analysis. When researchers test how well people actually know themselves, nearly everyone is sure that they've got this solid handle on it. Oh, of course I know myself. But only about 1 in 10 genuinely does. Most people don't know themselves at all. The people most likely to be flat wrong about who they are tend to be the senior, successful, sure of themselves one. Look, I'm old, I'm successful, of course I know who I am at this point. Because the higher you climb and the more certain you seem, the less anyone around you is willing to risk to tell you the truth. Confidence doesn't make you correct, it just empties the room of everyone who might have corrected you in the first place. Which is Tai Lung all over again, staring straight at the answer and seeing nothing because he never spent the time to figure out if he was wrong in the first place. So, by now, you might be feeling pretty good about yourself and your insecurities. Well, hey, I'm not the confidence guy, I'm insecure, which must mean I'm better. But no, please don't actually think that, because everything we just went through only holds while the dial is turned up, and you are the one still controlling that dial. The second the dial starts to take control of you, all of that flips. You don't want to be stuck in insecure mode. From there, it tends to go one of two darker ways, with the smarter, more self-aware people usually falling for the second one. The first issue is that this kind of thing can just eat you up. The alarm stops waiting around for real mistakes and starts inventing them and keeps your cortisol flowing all of the time. And this manifests most clearly in social situations where your insecurity turns into a constant social anxiety. That sharper read on other people, the one that catches the tiniest shift in someone's face, gets cranked up so high that it starts seeing anger in a face that's honestly just tired, or has a little twitch, or it's reading a slow text reply, and that reads it as proof that everyone secretly can't stand you. Paranoia. The sensitivity settings of that internal alarm get so high that it picks up threats that were never actually there, mistakes that were never actually made. And if you live inside that state long enough, the doubt stops being a thing that you feel and slowly becomes the thing you think you are.
I know that I can be selfish and narcissistic and self-destructive, but underneath all that, deep down, I'm a good person and I need you to tell me that I'm good.
Bojack spent so long being certain he's worthless that worthlessness slowly became home. The one story about himself that he actually knew how to tell. It became who he was. He can list every flaw with perfect accuracy, and none of that knowledge does anything for him because the doubt has burned through the floor all the way to the basement. He can't reach a verdict on himself anymore and can't figure out how to actually improve himself. When the doubt sinks that deep, it stops protecting you or saving you from anything at all. It just turns into a place to hide. That's one way out of the bottom, getting even lower. But here's the other, and it looks kind of like the exact opposite, even though it's the same problem wearing a nicer coat. You can't stand the alarm, so you shut it off. You bury the whole insecure mess under a self that never doubts, never flinches, never once admits that it's scared. And for a while, that works beautifully, because now nobody can see the part of you that you're ashamed of, including you. You put up those walls, and now you're perfectly defended. The only problem with that is that you've just torn out the one thing that was telling you when you were wrong. Azula is the scariest example of this in any cartoon, and the show does not soften it. The whole series, she's the prodigy, she's the perfectionist, and all of it is built on top of a kid who decided a long time ago that being loved, being in a relationship, having actual friends was for the weak, and being feared was the only thing you could ever really count on. So she shut that soft part off, and that works for her. She gains power, she gains everything she wants, right up until the people around her start leaving because they never really liked her to begin with. Reality stops matching the story that she's been telling herself, and there's suddenly nothing underneath to catch her. That bravado, that facade she put on the entire time was never actually for her. She got rid of the thing that was supposed to warn her that something was wrong, so when the alarms that should have been blaring were completely silent, she never thought anything of it. By the end, she's alone, hacking off her own hair, crying, and shooting fire at nobody. That's not a person who had too little confidence. That's what's left when you have nothing but confidence, and you've cut out the alarm that was trying to keep you honest with yourself. So too much insecurity eats you alive, and none of it leaves you blind to all your flaws. Which means the thing we're actually going after here was never one side or the other, it was, of course, balance. And nobody puts this part in a fortune cookie because it's a lot less fun than love yourself or just be confident or you'll be lucky and everything will work out. The goal here was never to force yourself to feel less insecure, and it definitely was never to feel more insecure. It's to get the dial to the right spot and adjust the sensitivity of it. And then you can do what is actually something useful with what it's telling you. So for years, being a worrier, what psychologists called neuroticism, got treated as straightforwardly bad for you. More stress, worse health, shorter life, more cortisol coursing through your system. And on its own, that is mostly true. But when researchers looked closer, they found something strange. If you take a worrier and pair that worrying with conscientiousness, with the actual discipline to act on it in the first place, to actually measure it and understand it, the worry flips into an asset. These people had lower stress, fewer bad habits, and they caught their health problems earlier. The difference between the uncontrolled worrier whose anxiety is wrecking them and the worrier whose anxiety is protecting them isn't the amount of worry at all. It's just whether the worry gets to drive you or whether it just gets to sit in the passenger seat and point things out while you take control of the wheel. Which is, weirdly, the exact note that Inside Out 2 lands on. Anxiety starts out useful. She's the one thinking ahead, getting Riley ready for a world that's about to get more complicated and dirty. Then she takes over completely. She grabs the controls and will not let go, and she nearly tears the kid apart doing it.
I was just trying to protect her.
The psychologist who consulted on the film draws the line about as simply as anyone can. Helpful fear is when you're scared of something that is genuinely a threat, sized to how big the threat really is, proportional. Harmful fear is being scared when nothing is actually wrong. The feeling is identical either way. The only question that ever matters is whether it's pointed at something real. It's whether it actually matches the situation. People tend to get the finish line wrong on this one. They picture graduating into confidence, waking up one morning and just not feeling the doubt anymore. You got ahead of it. You fixed the problem. But that's not what fixing the problem looks like. That is not what the people who have actually figured this out looks like. They still feel doubt. They still feel all of it. They've just stopped letting their fear control them and boss them around.
I'm a smart, strong, sensual woman.
Now, I'm only half joking putting Tina here. On paper, she is one of the most anxious characters on television. She overthinks everything. She groans her way through every social situation, and she's awkward in a way that's almost physically painful to sit through. And as an autistic guy myself, I feel every moment of it. But she is also somehow completely and unshakably herself. She never once pretends to be cool. She likes exactly what she likes, and she's proud of it. She says the mortifying things out loud. And when it actually matters, she plants her feet and holds her ground. Still nervous, still awkward, still entirely Tina. She didn't delete the doubt to get there. She didn't cover it up and pretend it wasn't there. She just refused to let it have the final say over who she's allowed to be. So what do you actually do with this on a normal day when the doubt shows up and your whole body wants to either obey it or just kill it and make that feeling go away? The first thing to do is, when it flares up, instead of just sitting there marinating in the feeling and going over and over and over in your head, thinking that you're wrong and that you're worthless, just read it and analyze where it's coming from. Because insecurity is actually almost always pointing at something specific. Then, once you've got it, once you've looked into it and realized where that feeling is coming from, you can turn it into a move, into an action, instead of a loop that holds you down. The doubt tells you that you're underprepared, so go and prepare. That's the entire trick, and it sounds almost too simple to say out loud, and hey, it's not simple when you're in the moment, right? Except that almost actually nobody does this and takes it to the next level. They take "you're underprepared" and instead of preparing and figuring out what's actually wrong, they just spin this issue around in their head for 3 hours until it curdles into "you're a failure, you can do nothing right, and there's nothing to fix." And the last one is kind of the hard one. At some point, you just have to move on before the feeling gives you permission to, because it's never going to. Once you start marinating in that feeling, it keeps you there, it holds you. But you're not supposed to drown in it. It's supposed to point you in a direction, and then once you know where to go, you say thank you, and you leave it behind and start working on it.
When will I know I'm ready?
You won't. It's a leap of faith.
If you already knew for certain that it would work, it wouldn't be faith. It'd just be following directions and taking it step by step on a map. So you take the read, you do the prep, and then you have to jump anyway, with the nerves still firing the whole way down, which is not the absence of insecurity. It is insecurity, finally being used correctly. It's just an alarm system, but you have to be the one in control. So, back to where we started. We treat insecurity a lot of the time like a flaw, something to fix or hide or grow out of. But it was never the flaw, it's an alarm. And a loud alarm can be a gift exactly as easily as it can be a curse. The whole thing comes down to whether you let it drive or let it advise. Turned up and steering you, it's panic and paralysis and a mask that eventually cracks. Turned up and working for you, it's the thing that keeps you preparing, keeps you on your toes, keeps you reading the room, keeps you honest, keeps you looking when everyone more certain than you have already stopped looking and stopped growing. Tai Lung threw that scroll away, certain that he'd already seen everything in it. You are still looking. You are still analyzing. You see past where the words are supposed to be and look deep into your own eyes, and you understand. Because the words on the page were never the problem. You were never the problem. The insecurity was never really the problem. That was the entire point. You have to look into yourself, and you have to figure out what to do next, and then you have to do it. And of course, that's more easily said than done, but here's the thing that hopefully clicks into place just now. Almost everything we just talked about is sitting on top of a much bigger question, which is, who are you even really underneath all of this? Because you genuinely can't tell whether the alarm is right about you until you actually know who you are in the first place. And that turns out to be its own enormous mess, one that the cartoons we grew up on actually cracked open better than most of the adults who raised us ever did. We made a whole video about exactly that. The link is right there. Go figure out who you actually are first, and then maybe your insecurity will finally have something true to measure itself against. And you know what else is true? The fact that you liked and subscribed, and that you're gonna click on that link, and that we're gonna see you in the next video. Peace, y'all.